The twin suns of New Hope Colony glowed gently over the dusty streets. Children laughed near the trading port, chasing small drones and paper kites through the air. Among them was a human boy named Eli, no older than 8, holding a tiny handmade toy starship. He loved to build things from scrap, metal bits, old circuits, and colorful wires his father brought home from work. To Eli, it wasn't just a toy, it was a dream, a symbol of adventure among the stars. That morning, Eli wandered toward the cargo docks. Humming softly, the air was filled with the smell of oil, hot metal, and the distant roar of engines. Traders from many species had come, scaly, feathered, and furred, all busy shouting prices and loading crates. But among the noise, Eli saw something unusual behind a broken container. A small figure crouched there, shivering, watching the humans from the shadows. It was a child, but not human. Its skin shimmered faintly blue, thin and almost transparent under the sunlight. 2 large golden eyes blinked fearfully as Eli stepped closer. The alien child looked weak, hungry, and frightened. Clutching a small cloth to its chest, Eli froze for a moment, not sure what to do. Then he remembered what his mother always said. When someone looks lost, Eli, it means they're waiting for kindness. He smiled softly and crouched down, holding out the toy ship. "Hey," he whispered, "you can have this." The alien child didn't move at first, its eyes wide and unsure. No one had spoken gently to it for a long time in its world. Kindness had been replaced by fear and hunger. The Tyrell Empire, its home, had fallen to ruin after a famine and a plague. No one in the Galactic Council had sent aid, not a single ship of food or medicine. Their children starved while the Council debated for profit and power. The alien child trembled as it reached for the toy. Its claws brushed against Eli's small hand. For a moment, 2 worlds touched, one of fear, one of innocence. The child took the toy carefully, holding it as if it were made of light. A tear fell from its eye, landing on the dusty ground. Then it whispered a single word in its own language. Hope? Eli didn't understand the word, but he felt the emotion behind it. He smiled again and said, "You don't have to be scared, okay?" From the rooftops above, a group of alien merchants paused to watch. They had seen many things in the galaxy, wars, greed, betrayal, but not this. A human child giving away his only toy to a starving alien. They silently recorded the moment through their visors, transmitting it to their homeworld networks. The image of the toy exchange spread quickly, faster than anyone expected, across trade routes and encrypted channels. The Tyrell people saw it, and for the first time in years they cried that night. Strange signals began to appear around the colony. Unidentified ships were seen moving at the edges of deep space. The local defense sensors picked up faint energy signatures, organized, disciplined, and growing in number. No one could identify their allegiance, but the signals carried a mark, a small child holding a toy ship. Eli's parents noticed the strange lights in the sky as they tucked him into bed. His father joked nervously, "Looks like the stars are watching you tonight, son," but his mother felt a chill, as if something far greater was unfolding. In a nearby observation tower, a human officer reviewed the colony's night scans. She zoomed in on one of the unidentified ships, Tyrell design. Heavily armed yet inactive, 1,000 questions filled her mind. Why would the Tyrell return after so many years of silence? Why gather near a human colony? She didn't know that deep in Tyrell space. 500 ships were already preparing to move, not for war, but for something no one expected, gratitude. Meanwhile, the alien child sat quietly under the same sky, far away in a refugee sector. It held the little toy close, watching its glowing engines flicker in the starlight. Every refugee who saw it felt something awaken inside, a memory of peace and compassion. Word spread. A human gave a Tyrell child a gift. The story traveled faster than light, across systems and sectors, and every Tyrell heart that heard it began to beat with new purpose. On New Hope Colony, Eli woke up the next morning to the hum of the port alarms. He ran to the window, his toy missing but his heart full of curiosity. The sky shimmered with hundreds of trails, massive ships entering orbit. People ran through the streets, pointing upward in awe and fear. The military scrambled to raise shields and communication links, but the transmissions came not as threats. Just one message repeated across every frequency. "We come in gratitude, not in war." Eli didn't understand what was happening. He only saw the beauty of lights dancing above his world. To him, they looked like stars coming closer. But to the galaxy it was something much greater. A single child's kindness had stirred an empire back to life. The moment that would soon be called the Day of the Toy, and it all began with a small boy, a lonely alien and a starship made by hand. The morning after the strange lights appeared, the colony was filled with confusion. People gathered near the main square, pointing at the sky where faint glimmers still lingered. Some said it was a military exercise. Others whispered about alien fleets and secret deals, but no one could explain the strange symbol seen on the scanners. A child holding a toy ship. Governor Hale of New Hope Colony stood before the command screen, his face pale. The communication lines buzzed with static, broken by faint voices speaking in an alien language. They weren't threats, but messages, calm, respectful, and full of strange gratitude. The words translated roughly to, "We remember the boy. We remember hope." Hale frowned, not understanding. Yet he felt a strange sense of peace behind the message. Across the stars, something extraordinary was happening. The short video of Eli giving his toy to the alien child had spread far beyond human systems. It reached the outer refugee worlds where the Trell people lived in despair and hunger. They watched it again and again, the kindness of a small human. To them, it wasn't just a gesture. It was a spark in the endless darkness. Some Trell elders began to weep, whispering old prayers they thought were long forgotten. In the deep void aboard the flagship Teverin's Promise, Admiral Rockle watched the recording. He had fought in 50 wars and lost his family to starvation during the Council's betrayal. Yet as he watched the tiny human hand offer a toy to one of his kind, his heart trembled. "This," he said softly, "this is what we forgot." His officers looked at him, confused as the Admiral stood tall and spoke again. "No more anger, no more shame. We will answer this kindness with honor." And with that command, the Trell fleets began to move, not to attack, but to return something the galaxy had lost: gratitude. On New Hope Colony, Eli's family became the center of attention. Reporters, soldiers, and diplomats crowded near their small home. Eli didn't understand why everyone wanted to talk about his toy. He just smiled shyly and said, "I only wanted to make a friend." His mother held him close, whispering, "You did something beautiful, Eli." But even she didn't realize how far that beauty had traveled. Within days, the Galactic net overflowed with the story. Alien artists painted murals of the moment, showing the human boy and the Trell child. Priests of distant worlds called it the miracle of New Hope. Merchants named entire trade convoys after Eli's toy ship. And slowly, the Tyrell refugees began to gather under one banner. 500 scattered warships started to regroup near their home system, each ship bearing the same emblem, a child holding a toy starship. It was not an army of vengeance, but an army of honor. Meanwhile, human military intelligence grew alarmed. They tracked the fleet movements, counting hundreds of energy signatures forming a pattern. Some officers feared an ambush or retaliation, but others, the wiser ones, saw the truth hidden in the signals. The transmissions carried no encrypted battle codes, no orders of aggression. Instead, they broadcast a repeating phrase in both human and Tyrell language: "We come in gratitude, not in war." Eli's story reached even the Galactic Council. They watched the footage in silence, their chambers filled with uneasy whispers. One counselor muttered, "A child's toy now stirs the hearts of entire systems," another sneered. "This is dangerous. Human sentiment will poison reason." But deep inside, even they knew something had changed. The galaxy had seen humanity's strength before, in wars, in survival, in invention, but never had it seen the power of human kindness on such a scale. Back on the colony, the nights grew strange. Soft light trails appeared in the upper sky like glowing rivers. Scientists confirmed they were ships traveling in perfect formation, approaching slowly each passing night. More appeared, 10, then 50, then hundreds. The people of New Hope began to whisper, "They're coming for the boy." But no one could tell if it was for vengeance or reverence. Eli sat by his window every night, clutching another toy he built from spare parts. He didn't know about fleets or politics. He only hoped the alien child was safe. Sometimes, he thought he heard soft humming in the distance, like a song carried through the stars. It made him smile even when others were afraid. "Maybe they're singing thank you," he said one evening. His father laughed nervously. "Or maybe they're just curious." But his mother's eyes filled with tears, because she felt something deeper in her heart, something the galaxy had long forgotten, compassion returning. And far beyond the colony's atmosphere, Admiral Reichel gave his next order. "Set course for New Hope," he said, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "Let every ship carry the banner of peace. Let every warrior remember the child who reminded us what honor truly means." The stars shimmered as 500 ships turned toward the human world. Their engines glowed like candles lighting a dark ocean. And as the fleet began its long journey, one thought spread among the Tyrell, for the child who gave hope. "We shall give our hearts back on New Hope Colony." Sensors began to pick up something massive in the distance. 500 ships, approaching in silence, perfectly aligned. Every alarm across the colony began to ring. But the incoming message remained calm, unwavering, and filled with sincerity. "We come in gratitude, not in war." The governor trembled, unable to believe what he was hearing. Humanity had seen invasions, had seen destruction, but never before had an empire crossed the stars simply to say thank you. And in that moment, the galaxy itself began to shift, because one small act of kindness had reached places no weapon ever could. The morning sky over New Hope Colony burned with light. Thousands of people gathered on rooftops, hills and open fields, staring upward in disbelief. The scanners had confirmed it. 500 ships, all of Trell design, had entered orbit silently. They moved in perfect formation, their silver-blue hulls glowing like living stars. No weapons powered up, no shields raised, only a steady pulse of energy that felt almost peaceful. The colony's alarm siren screamed at first, then faded into uncertain quiet. Governor Hale stood in the command center, gripping the railing as the holographic map showed the fleet. 500 confirmed contacts, said a young officer, his voice trembling. "None showing hostile intent, sir. They're just waiting for what, no one knew." In the quiet suburbs of the colony, Eli stood by his window once again. He pressed his hands against the glass, eyes wide with wonder. The sky shimmered with trails of silver light. Like rain made of stars, his mother came beside him, whispering. "Don't be afraid, I'm not," Eli said softly. They came back. Across the colony, soldiers prepared for every possibility. Armored divisions stood by, railguns charged but not aimed. Communication arrays flickered as the alien signal repeated across every channel. "We come in gratitude, not in war." The voice was calm, deep, and carried a tone of reverence, not command. Finally, one ship descended lower, larger than the others. It was ancient in design, Tyrell Royal class, a vessel once used only by their leaders. It broke through the clouds slowly, glowing with a soft golden aura. The crowd gasped as it hovered above the colony's central plaza. The wind howled from its thrusters, dust swirling around the landing zone like a storm of light. Governor Hale gave the order to hold fire, his voice shaking. "Let them land," he said. "Let's see why they're here." The massive ship touched the ground with a deep hum. Its ramp extended, long and curved like a metallic bridge reaching out to humanity. And from the shadows of its interior, figures began to emerge. The first was tall, armored in black and gold, a warrior whose movements were slow and deliberate. Behind him came dozens more, each carrying no weapon, only banners marked with a child holding a toy starship. The crowd fell silent, watching as the warriors formed two perfect lines. Then between them an older Tyrell stepped forward. His armor bore the marks of age and battle, yet his eyes glowed with calm purpose. He stopped at the edge of the ramp and lowered himself onto one knee. The entire line of soldiers followed his gesture in perfect unison. 500 warriors kneeling before a single human colony. Governor Hale could barely speak. "What are they doing?" he whispered. The alien commander's translator hummed and then spoke. "We kneel not to your weapons but to your kindness." Gasps filled the crowd. The commander continued, his voice firm yet full of emotion. "One of your children gave hope to one of ours. That small act reminded us what it means to be alive. We came to return that gift, to stand beside humanity, not against it." He reached into a small case and revealed something shining. A perfect replica of Eli's toy starship, carved in crystal and glowing with soft blue light. He held it toward the humans. "This," he said, "is the symbol of our rebirth. A child's kindness has done what our wars never could. It has united us again." Governor Hale stepped forward, his voice quiet and shaking. Who sent you here?" The alien commander bowed his head. "We were sent by no ruler, no council. We were sent by a story that reached our hearts." From the crowd, a small voice called out, "That was me!" Everyone turned, and there stood Eli holding his mother's hand. Eyes full of innocence, the alien commander looked at him for a long moment. Then he placed the glowing crystal toy on the ground and bowed deeply. "To the boy who gave hope to a dying race," he said. "We are forever in your debt." The crowd broke into whispers, tears and stunned silence. Even the soldiers lowered their weapons. Unsure whether to salute or kneel, Eli stepped forward timidly, picking up the glowing crystal ship. "It's beautiful," he said softly. The commander nodded. "It belongs to you. Little one, it is your gift returned." Above them, the remaining Tyrell ships released millions of light particles into the sky. They floated like fireflies, forming shapes and constellations visible across the horizon. It was not a display of power, it was an offering, a promise. The message beamed across every frequency once more. Hope remembers hope. That day, no shots were fired, no treaties were signed, yet the galaxy shifted quietly, as two species, once strangers, found something far stronger than fear. Eli's simple kindness had done what no fleet, no weapon, no council ever could. He had taught the stars to remember compassion. And as the sun set behind the alien flagship, every person who watched knew this was history. The day when gratitude, not war, filled the skies far across the stars. In the shining core of the galaxy, the Galactic Council Hall buzzed with restless energy. The marble towers of the capital world reflected the light of 100 suns. But inside, darkness filled every heart. Counselors of 1,000 species gathered in silence, staring at the holographic feed before them. It showed the image of 500 Tyrell ships kneeling above a human colony. No war, no conquest, only gratitude, only peace. And that was what terrified them most. Chancellor Vorlon, the oldest among them, slammed his clawed hand on the table. "This is manipulation," he hissed, his golden eyes narrow with anger. "No empire moves 500 warships without purpose. No human child creates an alliance without hidden intention." His voice echoed through the chamber, but not everyone agreed. Ambassador Rilna of the Serethi leaned forward, her voice calm yet firm. "Perhaps we are witnessing something we no longer understand," she said. "Maybe the humans remind us of what the Council has forgotten. Empathy." The hall fell into whispers, fear mixing with shame. For generations, the Council had ruled through control, power, and cold diplomacy. Kindness had no place in their laws. Compassion no space in their hearts. The recording of the event played again, the alien commander kneeling before Eli, the crystal toy glowing between two species. Even the translators could not soften the emotion in his words. "We kneel not to your weapons, but to your kindness." Every syllable struck the council like a blade. They saw their influence slipping away. They saw hope being reborn without their permission. An aide rushed into the chamber, breathless and pale. "Reports confirm," he said, "that several neutral systems have joined the Human Tyrell Alliance. Trade routes are reopening under their joint flag, and citizens across the galaxy are protesting for reform." The room erupted in noise, shouts, roars, and curses filled the air. One counselor cried, "They are turning the galaxy against us with kindness." Another replied, "Then perhaps it is because we gave them only fear." For the first time in centuries, the council was divided. Half of them demanded military action. The other half called for diplomacy. But none of them could deny the truth. The galaxy was changing, and it was a child who began it. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the hall, a secret meeting was taking place. The security director, a tall insectoid being named Zarath, whispered to his agents. "This human influence must be contained," he said coldly. "Hope is more dangerous than war." His plan was already in motion. To disrupt the alliance, to paint humanity as deceivers, to remind the galaxy that peace under humans would mean subjugation under Earth's ideals. But far from the capital, the truth kept spreading. News stations showed the celebration on New Hope Colony. Humans and Tyrell working side by side, sharing food, technology, and laughter. Even distant races began sending messages of peace. In markets and taverns, people no longer whispered about human aggression. They spoke of the boy with the toy. At the same time, deep inside the council chambers, an argument broke out. "We must remind them who rules the stars," one general growled. "The council's authority is fading. If we allow humans to stand as symbols of compassion, our power ends." But another voice, old and tired, rose above the noise. "Maybe it should," said Elder Geron softly. We built this council on order, yet we have created nothing but silence and fear. If one child's kindness can bring unity, then perhaps we have already lost the right to lead." Silence followed his words. Even the walls of the grand chamber seemed to hum with uncertainty. No one could answer him because deep inside, they all knew he was right. At that very moment, a message arrived from Tyrell space. It was not encrypted, not hidden. It was public for all to see. A broadcast showing a human and a Tyrell child standing together, holding hands beneath a flag bearing both worlds' symbols. Together, the message said, "We are stronger in peace." The council's communications grid nearly crashed under the flood of public approval. Billions watched the broadcast, cheering, crying, and sending messages of unity. Chancellor Vorlan stood, trembling with rage. "Enough!" he shouted. "Humans are rewriting the order of the stars. If this continues, the council itself will become meaningless." He looked toward the shadowed corner where Zarath waited. "Prepare Operation Veil," he ordered. "The galaxy must be reminded of who truly holds power." Zarath bowed slowly, his eyes glowing with cold intelligence. "As you command, Chancellor," he said. But even as he left the room, he knew the truth. It was already too late. No weapon, no propaganda, no lie could stop the seed that had been planted. For kindness had taken root in the hearts of millions, and in every corner of the galaxy, people began to whisper the same word. A word that no council could ever destroy. Hope. Years passed since the day the Tyrell fleet descended on New Hope Colony. The story of the human boy and the alien child spread farther than anyone imagined. It became legend told in schools, whispered in temples, carved into monuments across 100 worlds, and every version began the same way. A child gave away a toy, and in return, he gave the galaxy hope. Eli grew older, his hair turning from the bright gold of youth to the calm brown of maturity. He never saw himself as special, just as someone who wanted to help. But the galaxy saw him differently, to billions. He was the boy who united the stars. He was invited to embassies, to councils, to peace gatherings, and every time, he carried the same small toy starship, now old and cracked. It had become more than a toy. It was a symbol of everything humanity stood for. On the 10th anniversary of the event, the Tyrell invited him to their rebuilt homeworld, once a place of famine and sorrow, now alive with gardens, light, and laughter. The city of Tavaran Prime glowed like a sapphire under twin moons. At the heart of the city stood a grand museum, a ring-shaped structure of glass and crystal. Inside it was a single object floating in a beam of light. Eli's original toy starship, perfectly preserved, shining softly in the air. The plaque beneath it read, "Hope begins small, but it never fades." When Eli saw it, tears filled his eyes. He reached out but did not touch. The toy no longer belonged to him, it belonged to the stars. Admiral Rockle, now older and slower, stood beside him. "The toy reminded us what it means to be alive," he said quietly. "When we saw your kindness, we remembered our families, our children, our purpose." Eli smiled gently. "And you reminded us that compassion can reach beyond our worlds." They stood there in silence for a long time. Two beings from different species, yet bound by something no empire could control. Respect. That evening, the celebration began. Millions gathered across the planet, lighting candles, lanterns, and glowing crystals. They called it the Day of the Toy. Every year on this date, children of all species would exchange small gifts, not for money or ceremony, but as a reminder of unity. It became the largest day of peace in the galaxy. Even enemies paused their wars to honor it. The council that once ruled in fear had been dissolved. In its place stood the Interstellar Alliance of Empathy, and its founding document began with a single sentence written by Eli himself. "Let no act of kindness be forgotten." As Eli spoke to the crowd, his voice carried through 1,000 holographic feeds. "My toy was not magic," he said softly. "It was something simple, made from scrap and love. But it reached hearts because it reminded us that we all need the same things. Hope, warmth, and care." The crowd fell silent. Even those watching from distant worlds felt a strange light inside their hearts, a light they had not known for centuries. When the speech ended, 500 ships rose again into the sky. The same Tyrell fleet that had once knelt before him now. They carried blossoms of energy that burst into color across the atmosphere. They painted the stars with words written in light. "Hope unites us." Children cheered. and elders wept, for the galaxy, once divided by fear, was now bound by compassion. Later that night, Eli walked alone to the museum balcony. He looked up at the stars, glowing softly above the Tyrell capital. Beside him, the alien child he had once met, now fully grown, stood quietly. Her name was Sira, and she had become the ambassador of her people. She smiled, her golden eyes shining with emotion. "Do you ever miss home?" she asked. Eli nodded. "Sometimes, but maybe home isn't one place anymore. Maybe it's wherever people choose to care." Sira laughed gently. "You sound like the stories they tell about you." Eli smiled. "Maybe because I believe them too." Above them, satellites carried the signal of the Day of the Toy across the stars. Worlds once enemies shared their first peace meals. Warships powered down their weapons and joined in orbiting parades. Everywhere from the smallest moon to the grandest city, people spoke the same word: hope. As the night grew quiet, a small shuttle drifted into orbit carrying Eli and Sira. They looked out the viewport, watching the toy starship's symbol projected into the heavens. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's humanity," Eli replied, his voice full of pride, for in that moment, he finally understood what his mother meant years ago. "When someone looks lost, Eli, it means they're waiting for kindness and far beyond." In the endless black between galaxies, the light of that kindness kept traveling, through nebulae, through silent dust, through the void where no counsel could reach. It became a pulse, a heartbeat echoing in the fabric of the universe, a reminder that one act of compassion could rewrite the destiny of stars. And so, long after Eli was gone, long after worlds changed and names were forgotten, one story remained carved in the soul of every civilization. A child gave a toy, and the galaxy remembered how to love.